Good evening. At this time, I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting of March 27th, 2023. For viewers watching at home, some members of the public may be participating via video conference or teleconference. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, liberty.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Ferris,
Here.
Commissioner Lanson,
Here.
Commissioner Link,
Present.
Commissioner Tyler Kettlehut,
Here.
Chair McMahon.
Here. Thank you. Item number 4. Tonight we have with us Planning Division Manager Steve Cairns. Mr. Cairns, are there any written comments, announcements, or continuances at this time?
Yes, thank you, Chair McMahon. We did distribute one supplemental packet this morning to the Planning Commission. It contains a letter of support for the project from the Chamber of Commerce, as well as a clarification on the traffic impact analysis provided in the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have public speaker cards, but they're for the, okay, so we don't have any public comments at this time, so I won't be reading that. Next, we have the consent calendar with the minutes of the February 27th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting. Are there any comments? Do any of the fellow commissioners have any comments, or is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I will move to approve.
Thank you. Would the secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Ferris,
Yes.
Commissioner Lanson,
Aye.
Commissioner Link,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyler Kettlehut,
Yes.
Chair McMahon.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And now, item 7A, will the clerk please open the public meeting?
Hearing having been advertised as required by law is hereby open to consider Agenda Item 7A, General Plan Amendment 2021-70182-LU, Development Permit 2022-70269-DP, Protected Tree Permit 2022-70535-PTP, and Development Agreement 2022-70822-DAGR. That the Planning Commission adopt a resolution forwarding the following recommendations to City Council to find that the project qualifies for a categorical exemption under the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, pursuant to Class 32, Section 15332, infill development projects, and Section 15061B3, common sense exemption, to conditionally assign a permanent allocation of 55 dwelling units of citywide Measure E capacity to the project site, which is located within the Thousand Oaks Boulevard Specific Plan SP20, to allow the demolition of an existing commercial office building and construction of a maximum 50-foot tall 73-unit multifamily residential project including 8 affordable units and 3 live-work units, consisting of 1 building and a basement parking structure and associated landscape, hardscape, and grading, with requests for 2 incentives and 4 waivers as allowed by the state density bonus law, as well as the removal of 1 coast live oak Quercus agrifolia and 3 California sycamore platanus racemosa trees, encroachment into the protected zone of 24 protected trees, and to approve the development agreement to specify public and private benefits and responsibilities related to the proposal. Located at 88 Long Court, the applicant is SJG Long Investment.
Thank you. Presenting on behalf of staff is Associate Planner Justine Kendall. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Planning Commissioners, City staff, and members of the public. The presentation before you, as Laura just stated, is a request to demolish the existing commercial building and construct a new 73-unit apartment complex. The applicant's request is that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution thereby forwarding the following recommendations to City Council to find that the project qualifies for a categorical exemption under CEQA and to approve the following applications. General plan amendment to conditionally assign the permanent allocation of 54 dwelling units of citywide Measure E capacity to the project site. A development permit to allow the demolition of the existing commercial office development and construction of the 73-unit apartment project with a density bonus. To allow the removal of 1 Coast Live Oak, 3 California sycamores, and the encroachment into the protected zones of 24 other protected trees, and a development agreement to specify public and private benefits, all of which I'll go into more detail as we go through the presentation. The subject lot is, or subject property is a 1.8 acre lot bound by Moody Court to the east and Long Court to the west, currently developed with an existing approximately 20,000 square foot, 27 foot tall commercial office development approved in March 1978. The topography of the site has a gradual grade transition resulting in roughly a 14-foot rise in elevation between the northern or the lower surface parking lot and the southern or upper surface parking lot. The site is currently landscaped with mature foliage and trees, both protected and non-protected. The property is within the boundary of Specific Plan 20, the Thousand Oaks Boulevard Specific Plan, and the land use element of the general plan designates the property as commercial/residential. The site is adjacent to existing commercial uses, including offices to the south, medical offices to the west, and an assisted living facility to the east. A vacant parcel is located immediately adjacent to the north in what kind of looks like a cutout. A preschool, a hair salon, and the Heritage Park Demonstration Garden operate in between the subject property and Thousand Oaks Boulevard, which is approximately 270 feet to the north. A commercial office is located in between the subject property and the Ventura Freeway, which is about 200 feet south of the property. The site is currently visible from the 101, and although largely screened by existing development and landscaping, the proposed project will also be visible from the freeway. The two frontage streets seen here, Moody and Long Courts, are both cul-de-sacs and have no through connection. Each street is improved with a 5-foot wide sidewalk, except along the vacant lot frontage on Moody Court that provides pedestrian connectivity to and from the boulevard. On April 27th, 2021, a residential capacity allocation, or RCA, and an initiation of a general plan amendment for the project were authorized by City Council for allocation of the residential portions of the property and allowed the pre-screen and formal submittal processes to commence. On October 28th, 2021, a pre-application was submitted. Staff met with the applicant and provided development requirements, recommendations, and other project specifics. And on March 21st, 2022, the applicant began submitting the formal applications, which I listed previously, and are part of the recommendation. The project proposes the construction of a 73-unit podium apartment building. The apartment building is proposed with 3 stories above a basement parking garage and will be an average height of 34 feet, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The site topography informs the design of the building, as the structure appears to notch into that transitioning upward slope, which gets higher as it moves from the Thousand Oaks Boulevard to the freeway. The project's architectural design is a blend of mid-century modern and contemporary styles. I would also like to note that the applicant team did work with staff to incorporate feedback and recommendations for improved design and upgraded details, and I'll talk a little bit more about those as we go through. To talk more about the form and style, the exterior walls of the building are proposed to be earth tone colors, primarily consisting of stucco finishes, simulated wood fiber board form cement panels, stone veneer, and window areas with dark bronze trim. The architectural design incorporates articulation and detailing throughout, as you can see from this rendering, looking east from the northwest corner. So standing on Long Court, looking towards Moody Court at the Thousand Oaks Boulevard end. The proposed architectural design incorporates the design guidelines of the Thousand Oaks Municipal Code and SB 20 by including direct pedestrian access to the ground floor dwelling units wherever possible, and providing a variety of building materials and types, building material types and details. As you can see from this rendering, standing on Moody Court looking towards Long Court and the 101 freeway. Architecturally, the proposed building design, scale, materials, and landscaping complement the existing uses in the area as well. Residential units and rooftop decks face the streets on either side, with surface lots providing extended setback areas between the proposed development and the existing adjacent properties right next door. In addition, like I said, the project has been designed to be sensitive to the existing topography and the proximity to the highway. For example, protective screening of rooftop mounted mechanical equipment has been integrated into the building's overall design, as well as the setback to the building from the freeway has been preserved, similar to the existing use, to reduce the visual impact from the highway. To talk a little bit more about height, Specific Plan 20 allows buildings up to 3 stories with a 50-foot maximum average height. The majority of the proposed building is 3 stories, the rest is lower, above the parking garage. The average height of the structure is about 34 feet, and the maximum height of the building is 50 feet at the northern facade. Therefore, the building height does comply with the requirements of SB 20. The graphic here shows the subterranean basement level in pink, housing units in red, amenity spaces in green, and the pool area in blue. The Long Court, or the west side, is considered to be the rear yard, and the Moody Court, or the east side, is considered to be the front yard, as it is the narrower of the 2 frontages. And the staff report did state the reverse in error, and I apologize for that. The property lines adjacent to the other parcels to the north and the south are treated as interior side yards. However, as the proposed project fronts 2 streets, the Long Court and Moody Court, both street frontages need to comply with the SP 20 requirement that the 3rd story is an average of 10 feet setback. It's a 10-foot average setback, and they do comply with this requirement. The proposed project also meets the SP 20 sidewalk requirement along Moody Court. However, the applicant is requesting a waiver of the requirement to provide that sidewalk, extended sidewalk along Long Court, so that the existing 5-foot sidewalk is retained but not expanded. Staff recommends approval of this request as allowed by the municipal code, as the 3-foot addition to the existing 5-foot sidewalk would increase the concrete hardscape and reduce the landscape buffer being proposed and provided. However, in order to retain the option to expand the sidewalk in the future, city staff have negotiated with the applicant to include a 3-foot easement along Long Court as part of the development agreement. And here's a table outlining all of the required setbacks that apply to this property. With the acceptance of the waiver just described, the project meets all of the setbacks required by Specific Plan 20. In addition, per the municipal code, below-grade parking structures, which is what's proposed here, require increased setbacks for the front, rear, and side yards. The applicant is requesting that the 5-foot increased setbacks for the front and the rear yards be waived, as allowed by the municipal code. Staff supports this waiver request, as similar increased setbacks are not required for residential projects with above-ground parking structures, and a decreased setback or waiving of this increased setback requirement allows for more direct pedestrian access to the ground floor units, which was something we worked closely with the applicant on. Staying on the subject of waivers, the applicant is proposing a trash enclosure within the northwest and southeast corners of the parking structure, which you can see here highlighted very minimally. Per the municipal code, no loading or unloading activities, trash enclosures or recycling bins are permitted within a parking structure, technically. However, staff understands this section of the code to be outdated as new refuse collection vehicles, vehicle types now allow for the storage of waste containers within parking structures, and this has been allowed in other projects previously. As such, the applicant is requesting a waiver from this technical standard. I will also note that the applicant must receive approval from the trash management company for the design and the placement of the trash containers and bulky item pickup area prior to the issuance of building permits, and they're actively working on getting that approval already. They have received approval on a preliminary design, and they are working on getting an updated approval on the design you see before you right now. To get into the breakdown of the unit mix proposed, as mentioned previously, the project proposes a total of 73 units. This breaks down as 31 one-bedroom units and 42 two-bedroom units, including 3 live-work units. 6 units of the total, 73, will be designated as affordable for households in the very low income category. I'll talk more about that in a second. In addition, per the proposed development agreement, 2 additional units will be available to those households which fall into the moderate income category. So a total of 8 units will be designated as affordable per state requirements. The live-work units located at the northwest corner of the site, which you can see here kind of in a row in the leftmost part of the image, are intended to accommodate low-intensity commercial operations. These 2-story units function similarly to a home-based business, which is permitted in any residential area and are ideal for small startup businesses that require little work area and create a few customer trips. They're really like residential uses where at-home work is allowed. To break it down into more detail, and I can certainly come back to this slide later if more discussion is needed. To explain how the applicant is utilizing the state density bonus law, the maximum density for this project without a density bonus is 54 dwelling units, using the formula you see in the first line here. The applicant is proposing that 11% or 6 of the 54 units be affordable at the very low income level. By providing 11% of the initial units or the base units for residents with very low income levels, the applicant is entitled by state law to up to a 35% density bonus. This allows the applicant to add up to 19 more dwelling units for a total of 73 units maximum. In addition to that, the applicant, per the development agreement, as I mentioned previously, has agreed to provide 2 more affordable income units to moderate income families or people for an overall total of 8 affordable units, 2 above the minimum amount to qualify for that 11% density bonus. In addition, per state density bonus law, based on the percentage of very low income units offered, the applicant is also entitled to 2 incentives or concessions for this project. The 2 requested concessions include a 25% to 46% reduction of the 100 square foot minimum private open space area requirement for 57% of the units. I will note here that all units do require with the 7-foot width minimum. So that's not part of their concession request. And the other incentive or concession requested is an increase from 35% maximum building coverage to 54%. The applicant team is also requesting 4 waivers, which I've already described previously. It is worth noting as well that they are not requesting the reduced parking rate allowed by the state density bonus law. Getting into access, primary ingress and egress is provided on Long Court. Traffic from the project is estimated to result in an average of a net 8 additional trips compared to existing uses during the PM peak hours. The proposed project includes pedestrian walkways and a parklet open to residents and the public, which connect to the existing sidewalks on Long and Moody Courts. There are several pedestrian entrances to the building provided, including resident-only pedestrian access doors at the northern end of both street-facing facades, and the main lobby entrance accessed from the upper or the southern surface lot off of Long Court. In addition, ground floor units provide direct access to the sidewalk along both Moody and Long Courts via landscaped patios, which you can see here. Specific Plan 20 requires 1 1/4 parking spaces per 1-bedroom unit and 1 3/4 parking spaces per unit with 2 or more bedrooms. Guest parking is not required within Specific Plan 20. Therefore, as seen in the table pictured here, with 31 1-bedroom units and 42 units with 2 bedrooms, the project must provide a minimum of 113 parking spaces. The applicant is proposing 13 more spaces than it required, or 126 total. Parking is located within the parking garage as well as the 2 existing surface lots and the on-street parking immediately adjacent to the property lines. In addition, infrastructure or storage areas for bicycles are also provided. Landscaping is provided throughout the open spaces, landscape buffers, and along the walkways within the site. If the project is approved, a formal landscape plan will be required, and the technical evaluation of that plan will be provided through a landscape plan check process to ensure compliance with the city's landscape and irrigation standards. The project provides landscape buffers around the majority of both the north and south surface parking areas and exceeds the required amount of landscaping required. Per SP 20, 3% of the building footprint must be dedicated to public open space. The project exceeds this requirement by more than 350%, providing 4,500 square feet of public green space, playground, and walking area in the northeast corner of the property. I refer to in the staff report as the parklet at times, and seen here with the very large oak tree. And if you've been to visit the site, this is the oak tree that is behind the retaining wall existing on the site. The project includes several common on-site gathering and recreational spaces in order to preserve 3 of the protected oak trees on site. As I said, the northeast common open space is designed as a parklet open to the residents and the public and includes a 700 square foot children's play area as well. The purple trees seen here are on top of the podium courtyard area in the middle of this image. And 3 roof decks are also provided on the east and west wings of the building, which you can see here. 30 protected trees are located on and near the site. Per the applicant's tree report, 1 coast live oak and 3 California sycamore trees are proposed to be removed, and 24 protected trees will be encroached upon with no impact to the other 2 protected trees identified. Each protected tree to be removed must be replaced with 3 trees of the same species. The 3 required replacement coast live oak trees and 6 of the required replacement sycamore trees are to be planted on site per the proposed landscape plan. Any trees not able to be provided on site would be mitigated with an in lieu fee provided to the Conejo Open Space Conservation Fund used towards acquisition of open space. A city oak tree consultant reviewed the applicant's tree report and visited the site. The consultant concluded that with the inclusion of the conditions in the suggested resolution, including appropriate work methods and monitoring, that the proposed encroachments will not have a negative effect on the health of the trees. The tree impacts are necessary to allow site preparation and grading activities for the proposed residences and associated site improvements. With the inclusion of the recommended conditions, approval of the proposed project will not be contrary to or in conflict with the general purpose and the intent of the applicable regulations and guidelines. A development agreement is required for approval of projects that receive allocation of Measure E units. This agreement is a contract between the property owner and the city to ensure specific deliverables and site expectations are in place to ensure public benefit, such as the inclusion of affordable units and site improvements. The applicant's representatives and staff have worked together to prepare this agreement in compliance with the municipal code that identifies how that process is to take place. The development agreement lists various benefits to the city and to the applicant shown here. If the project is approved and constructed as proposed, the city will have 65 market rate, 6 low-income restricted affordable, and 2 moderate-income restricted affordable units to add to its residential stock and count towards the current RENA requirements from the state, as well as the demolition of an aging commercial site and publicly accessible open space, including a small playground. The applicant is also agreeing to extend the affordability covenant for all income-restricted units from 55 to 70 years and to provide that 3-foot wide easement along Long Court. In return for these public benefits, the applicant receives, as I said, the general plan amendment and the requisite Measure E unit allocation required to build the multifamily apartment development, as well as the ability to defer payment of city development fees for a period of 24 months with a possible 6-month extension. Additional points of the development agreement include timelines for the construction and an outline of the project's aspirational green initiatives. We did have some requests from the applicant come in this afternoon to revise a couple of the conditions included in the resolution, and I'll be incorporating that into our recommendation, which I'll leave up at the end of this presentation. One is to delete condition number 4, which requires the inclusionary housing fee. That is a standard condition normally required, really doesn't apply to this project because they are providing the affordable housing units. So it's to keep it in the resolution is confusing more than anything else. To edit condition number 87 to the following, which is to say that the water mainline extension is to be provided as necessary for the project and to the satisfaction of the city engineer. And to edit condition number 111 to clarify that the sidewalk has to be expanded to 8 feet along Moody Court, but that the easement shall be dedicated to the city for the extra 3 feet on Long Court. And I apologize that that was not clarified earlier. The proposed project has been designed to meet the intent of the city's standards, codes, and policies. The proposed building design and the site layout integrate well with the surrounding development and has a cohesive architectural design meeting the city's architectural design guidelines. Based on the analysis and findings contained in the staff report in this presentation, staff recommends approval of this project subject to the conditions of approval in the attached ordinances and resolutions that are part of your packet. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution recommending that the City Council find that the project is categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, pursuant to Class 32, Section 15332 for infill development projects and Section 15061B3, or the common sense exemption, and adopt a resolution with the edits proposed tonight based on the findings and subject to the conditions contained therein, recommending that City Council approve the applications listed here. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions, as are other city staff and the applicant team.
Thank you. That was a really thorough report. I appreciate that. Do we have any questions? Commissioner Lanson.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Ms. Kendall. That is a very detailed report, and I can tell that a lot of back and forth took place, including within, apparently it sounds like the last few hours. That's actually where I kind of want to start. You kind of went through those a little fast while I'm sitting there trying to flip. Can you kind of identify those 3 changes again that you were talking about? I think the first one was paragraph 24, correct?
Yes, condition number 24 regarding the inclusionary housing fee is to be removed.
And I was going to ask, actually, the status of that. The City Council has not passed our inclusionary housing ordinance, have they?
No, they have not. Not
All
this
right,
time.
so that's why I was going to ask whether or not this was applicable, but it sounds like since they're providing the numbers, this isn't something that would apply, correct?
Right, there is an inclusionary housing fee. Steve, please correct me if I'm wrong. There is an inclusionary housing fee on the books already. It's set at 0, which is why we include this condition kind of normally. But it wouldn't apply in any case to this project because they're providing the affordable units. This is why it's confusing and should not have been
Of
included.
course, reading something that we're providing a fee that's 0, but I understand that it has to be included as part of the process. So, but that wouldn't apply anymore since they're providing the numbers, correct? All right, so the second condition that you said there's going to be changed to is what?
The second condition is number 87, the water main line extension. And they requested to add the language, as necessary for the project and to the satisfaction of the city engineer, the applicant shall design and construct an 8-inch water main, et cetera.
Why did they want that change, if you know?
I think there's some question as to whether that is necessary or not. They can work that out with Public Works during the building plan check design.
Okay. Are we going
period.
to ask the applicant about that? And then the third condition was 111?
Yes, this is the sidewalk construction condition, which required the existing 5-foot sidewalk to be removed and replaced with an 8-foot wide sidewalk per city standards. And per the requested waiver, that's only going to apply to the Moody Court frontage, whereas the Long Court frontage, the additional sidewalk width will be provided via an easement. And so the language is just clarified, as you can see on your screens, to make the difference more clear.
Was that something the applicant asked for, or is it just basically a change to make it in compliance with our codes?
This condition is to reflect the recommendation of the project.
Okay, so it's something that complies with our rules.
Right, it's complying with the requested waiver. It's reflecting the project design.
Commissioner Lanson, if I may, when we were discussing this project, it came up about the 8-foot requirement. So typically, under SB 20, if the sidewalk's off the boulevard, of course, for on the boulevard, it's a different width, but for off the boulevard, it's 8 feet. As the planner mentioned, they voiced concern, and also the way that the project was designed for one sidewalk on Moody Court, make sure I get the right one, that they wanted to keep it at 5 feet, so that was a waiver that was requested. So since based on the negotiation, based on the discussions to maintain the architecture as it is, we agreed that they would keep the 5-foot sidewalk on one of those streets. But if we wanted to, the city could come back with an easement and widen that if we thought it was appropriate to the 8 feet.
And that'd be a
So-
permanent easement that we could take advantage of at any time?
Correct. And again, sometimes and Public Works can speak to this, but typically we look for projects that, for the scale that we're going to be in this area, okay, let's have a project that we can budget for over a period of time, and then it would incorporate this area, and we would look at it as part of that. So that's why that there's that difference. So for the other one, they're meeting the requirement. For the one that affects the landscaping to an extent that I think staff felt that it made sense to keep it at 5 feet for this particular project, the way that they're designing it, and having the benefits of the design as presented made sense. And so what we decided to do was, okay, what if we wanted to come back at some point in time? We want to preserve that today instead of waiting in the future and asking for a 3-foot easement in the future.
Okay, thank you. And I'll go back to my usual first question. Aside from, I know there was one comment in the supplemental. Your report indicated there was no other comments from the public. I just want to make sure that's the same. You haven't received any further communications?
That was the first.
Okay, so just the one, then
Just the
obviously we
one.
have a speaker card as well, but that's okay. I kind of want to clarify something that it's obvious a little bit, we talked about this last time at our last hearing with regard to the private open space issue, and that it seems to be a common issue. This is a little unique in that it sounds like from the materials that this is a concession that's required under California law as opposed to something that's discretionary. Is that true?
Are you asking if the concession is something we approve by right? Or like,
It sounds like what you're saying, to the extent that the density bonus process is applicable and they've satisfied the requirements, this concession is
Right.
something we don't really have discretion to say no about.
correct.
So those two things are basically included. It's obviously, and again, I think we've all voiced this, it's frustrating because it seems that's a common thing at this point, and maybe city council needs to go back and look at that, but it sounds like this is something we don't have discretion over to the extent they're satisfying the density bonus issue. Is that correct?
That's right.
All right. I'll only ask a few more. I want to make sure everybody has a chance. We should do the 3-question rule. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I noticed there was a lot of freeway noise as part of the freeway that's nearby. Again, I don't know construction enough to know whether or not the units are going to be done in a way that would make sure that that was not going to be a problem for the residents.
That's more of a question for the design team if they,
Okay, I noticed it's all electric, correct?
yes.
And there was a certain amount of EV charging stations that they're going to be provided?
Yes, they're providing over the minimum required.
Okay, and I noticed there was a for sale sign on the property. I looked it up. It didn't look like it was actually for sale. Any knowledge of whether or not the property is for sale?
For this property?
Yes.
No,
I'll
that
ask
sounds
the
like-
applicant.
Yeah, that sounds like a good
Okay.
question for them.
I think that's it for the moment. I know everybody has questions, so I'll stand down and ask questions later. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Link?
Couple questions for you regarding the sidewalks. So there is a severe lack of continuity on both Moody and Long. So once you actually get closer to the boulevard, there is not a continuous sidewalk that leads you to that intersection in essence. So I'm curious why one of the conditions for the project was not to have the project complete the sidewalk that is currently absent on Moody Court to provide that continuity.
That is not part of their property. I don't know, Patrick, can you speak to requiring them to improve somebody else's lot?
No, I mean, I can't say we specifically looked at that issue other than we were requiring them to address the sidewalks that were adjacent to their property that we thought that has a nexus for this particular project. And then, as I said it earlier, we had the discussion about under SP 20, there's a requirement to make it 8 feet. And for one of those sides of the streets, they wanted to do it as 5 feet. And as we discussed, that was something that we agreed to do as part of the negotiation.
So just thinking out loud here, since it appears from the project plans, or at least the construction plans, as well as the assessor's maps, that the city does have right-of-way for the parcel to the north, immediately to the north and the east on Moody Court, that we could potentially construct sidewalk there within the city right-of-way and then potentially condition the project so that there is continuity?
I would have to see if Public Works could answer that question tonight. I will say this, that we did talk to Public Works about the sidewalk issue as part of the negotiation to ensure that there would be a possibility that an easement would be necessary, or at least it would be beneficial to the city for a future project. So in that sense, I think it was something that was looked at as far as looking at this broader picture for this area for sidewalk development later on or in the future.
I'll also mention that the vacant property has had an active case on it throughout the lifespan of this project before you this evening. They would have improved, of course, their own sidewalk frontage. I'm not sure the status of that project or when that might come to fruition, but that's part of it too, is that we had always assumed that that project would be completing their portion of the sidewalk.
Sure, yeah, and that would make absolute sense. I think in this case, though, it's whoever gets to it first, and if this project does actually seems to be has more movement to it that would be beneficial to the project itself. So from that standpoint, there may be a nexus there to require it. So just thinking out loud.
Also, to Ms. Kendall's point, she just reminded me that there was another project right adjacent to this property that was approved by council as far as a pre-screening to allow, I think, up to 5 units. Measure E units were allocated for that much smaller parcel that's right adjacent to it. So maybe that's the reason why.
Makes sense. Let me see here. So you answered the question that I had on condition 111. Thank you very much. I did have a question about parking. I understand that there is a certain number, based on the specific plan, or SB 20 does allow for the counting of on-street parking spaces for the parking count for the project. Staff, I'm sure, is aware that there are currently parking restrictions on both Moody and Long Court, restricting parking between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. I assume those restrictions will be lifted in order to allow that parking to count towards the project?
Hi, this is Mark Bueno. I'm an associate engineer in Public Works Traffic. To answer your question, Commissioner, adjacent to the property, there would be an adjustment of the signage for the parking to allow that. But the parking along the other frontages would remain the same. That could be another discussion we could have with the neighborhood area to adjust that as well. But for now, it would just be adjacent to the project site would be adjusted.
Okay, excellent. And actually, this question is probably for Mr. Bussell. Is it, and I'm sure I understand that the purpose of constructing a main between the two on Moody and in Long would potentially be for maintenance or at least continuity or redundancy within the system, but is it normal that we would have a public main within private property?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Brad Bussell. I'm an engineer in the Public Works Department. Usually, whenever we have an opportunity to loop a water line, we do that. It's not only for fire flow purposes, but also for water quality purposes. So we would have an easement through there so we could get in there and maintain it, but it would improve our water quality to have that loop through there.
So assuming this is City of Thousand Oaks water and not
Yes,
Cal American?
it's City of Thousand Oaks water.
Okay. And then I just had one other question with regard to the fee deferrals. So the development agreement allows them to defer fees to a certain point in time. Does that, I assume that means that the fees paid at the time of, or the fees in effect at time of payment would be paid, or is that, does that freeze the?
Right, so this was definitely a negotiated element of the agreement, and that had to do with the timing of paying the full impact fees or the development fees. For traffic fees, for example, there could be hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on the project. And so what they requested and what we ultimately are presenting to you and to the City Council is a request to defer that particular payment that you would normally do right away to 24 up to 30 months. However, they would pay what the interest would be in that time period, because we want to make sure that we can capture the interest that we would have gotten from that timely payment. So they are going to pay that interest that we would note at the time that they're making the request. They cannot get occupancy for the project until the impact fees are paid. So again, if they were to build this project within 1 year, for example, we would make them pay this within that time period versus waiting the 24 to 30 months. So again, of course, if it's beyond that, then they would wait to have to pay that for that period of time.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you. Are there any, Commissioner?
Thank you. Again, excellent report. Thank you very much. And I appreciate all the questions that I had today prior to this to help make sure I understand some of the details. I have some questions just to make sure they're either for the record or for clarification of what we're doing here. So because there's a general plan land use amendment that's requested for this, I asked some general questions just to make sure that there's no requirement that there's voter approval for it. Two easy answers, I'm sure, is no. Are there any existing parks, golf course, or open space designations on this property, or are we expanding the curb boundary for this?
Both no.
Okay, very easy. Second, current designation is commercial and residential. The land use amendment is not changing that designation, so there would be no net increase in commercial acreage. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So then the last one regards regarding the allocation, permanent allocation of residential units to the property. Does that allocation as needed for the project result in a net increase of the maximum amount above the baseline?
No, the allocation came from the Measure E pool capacity that is still out there. And so it's not increasing that capacity.
Okay, thank you. One minor thing, because the notice says 55 units and it's actually 54, and I know there's a change in the actual calculation of the acreage. Are we asking for 55 or 54 tonight?
We're asking for 54. That is the correct allocation based on the size of the lot.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, Chair, Chair, excuse me, and Commissioner Ferris, I always ask the chair for permission to speak if I'm interrupting somebody, so I apologize. To your point on that, when we first did this allocation, we did up to 55 because that's what we thought the parcel size was going to be. And then after that allocation was made, which was definitely 55 was allocated based upon the recommendation and the assumption of the parcel size. Once we corrected that parcel size, it would be 54 based upon the maximum that could be allowed aside from the density bonus.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I just want to, because of that change, I want to know what we're asking for the official recommendation tonight, so thank you. I do have a question just for the record on this sort of, so for the protected tree permit, we are asking for encroachment as well as removal for 4 trees. Has the impact to the trees, given the size of the project, the fact that they're taking advantage of the density bonus, so it is a 73-unit project, has it been minimized to the greatest degree possible such that the removal of the trees really are necessary to achieve the goals of the project?
Yes, we did specifically ask the applicant during the review process to explore other options that might preserve the trees. And in going back and forth, this really is the best compromise. Most of the trees are being, of course, preserved. They are being encroached upon, but a lot of trees are being preserved and incorporated into that public open space as well. And the design team can speak a little bit more to maybe what they went through to contemplate that option. But yes, it was considered.
Okay, and the removal of the trees, they're then required on a 3-to-1 replacement, and that's consistent with what the ordinance specifies, right?
Correct. They will be replaced, or an in lieu fee will be paid for any that can't be planted directly on site.
Okay, thank you. With respect to the waivers and the concession, there's a little bit of discussion about the state law requires concessions, and then there's the request for waivers. And we thank you for, again, a discussion just to make sure that we've got the authority to be able to waive some of the particular requests here. Given the front yard setback, rear yard setback, minimum sidewalk width on lawn court, and the trash enclosure items, has that also been, with respect to the design of the project, been minimized to the greatest extent possible such that it achieves the objectives of the project?
Yes, the waivers, staff believes that with the requested waivers improve the project. As I discussed, it allowed the decreased setbacks, or waiving of the increase really, allows the project to be more walkable, provide that direct access to the sidewalks, things like that. And of course, providing the trash enclosure inside the parking garage is preferable to providing it outside, where it's exposed to the elements and things like that. So that's really an improvement. And then the last waiver, the sidewalk request, as we discussed, staff understands that request and supports that waiver.
Okay. Maybe we can end up talking about this afterwards in some ways, of the nature of waivers and the concessions of knocking the waivers, and sort of whether they're, if they're viable for today and how they got kind of all work. We can maybe talk about that at a later time. I would like to have a further discussion, I think, a little bit about it, because as Commissioner Lance, it comes up a bit more, and it might be good for us to have a thoughtful view on how we want to consider either updates of certain codes in this environment of concessions and potential waivers. Last thing is that there were recommendations from the applicant regarding certain conditions being removed and amended. Is staff okay with those, and is that intended to be incorporated in the recommendation that we have tonight?
Yes, so the recommendation is to recommend to the City Council that the resolution is adopted with the edits included tonight.
Okay.
And staff is fine with those edits as presented.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, Commissioner?
I have a question just about the supplemental traffic impact. So it was the traffic impact and trip generation analysis. So you've indicated that there are 126 total parking spaces, and that will generate only a net of 8 trips. Is that correct?
it's 8 p.m. peak hour trip. So during the peak period, there would be a net increase of 8 trips when you take into account the proposed project and the existing use credit, what's currently there, the existing office. So during that peak, not 8 trips as a whole, but just during that peak period.
So what constitutes the peak period?
It's a commuter peak, PM peak period, so generally 4 to 6 p.m.
Okay. And can you give me kind of a I'm glad you're here, I appreciate that, kind of a bird's eye view of how you guys assess that? Because I know that that's a really congested street, because I've spent a lot of time on that street, so it's a very congested street coming down. Is that basically ingress, egress? How does that work? Again, bird's eye view, because I know this is really complicated stuff, but just kind of a bird's eye view would be helpful.
Yes, Commissioner. So the way we review trips for a project is based on the Institute of Transportation Engineer trip generation manual. It's based on national standard or national observations of similar land uses. So for this project is a multifamily residential. Based on the trip rate provided by the manual, we generate a number of trips for the proposed project. And if there's an existing use credit or an existing use currently on the site, for example, this office, the project can take a credit for that. So essentially, the net increase we're looking at is 8 during that peak period. And so those are all based on the manual with observations for trip rates that were state guidelines and, national guidelines that we follow.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Just to
Okay.
throw in my 2 cents, I concur with everything he said. So from whatever place of authority I hold, it's all true.
Well, thank you for that. Easy ones. And the first one was, this project is called 88 Long Court, and the front of the building will be on Moody Court. Will the address be changed to Moody Court?
The technical front yard is Moody Court based on the definition of a front yard in the municipal code. The real life, what we will consider the entrances, the main entrances, are off of Long Court. Both parking lot entrances and the lobby are on Long Court, so they'll stick with the 88 Long Court address.
Okay, thank you. And the other question, 54 units were taken from our Measure E units. Those bonus units, are they taken from Measure E, or are they just taken out of the cloud?
They're just bonus.
Okay, thank you. I have no more questions. Are there any other questions? Okay, and now it's time for the applicant. If the applicant wishes to speak, please state your name and city of residence.
Good evening, Chair McMahon and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Tom Cohen, here on behalf of SJG Long Investment LLC, the applicant. And with me this evening is Mr. and Mrs. Lowe, they're representing their family that owns the property. Keith McCloskey with KTGY Architects, who designed the project. And then Richard Ibarra from Trees Etc., the project's arborist, both familiar faces in the city. First, we must extend our thank yous to the city staff. In particular, Justine Kendall, for your leadership in guiding the project through the planning process, and for your valuable recommendations that led to improvements to the project. The project is definitely in better shape with your involvement, and we sincerely appreciate your recommendations for approval of this project. And as you heard, we are requesting your approval to allocate 54 units of Measure E residential capacity through the general plan amendment and recommend approval of the project to the City Council. This project is located on the west end of Thousand Oaks Boulevard within specific plan number 20. As such, the specific plan requires a high-quality project with a wide range of amenities for the future residents, which we believe we are delivering. Specific plan number 20 and the zoning calls for housing on this property, and this property uniquely represents the best current opportunity on the boulevard on the west end to site quality workforce housing close to jobs, services, and retail due to its proximity within walking distance to, for example, Tarantula Hill Brewing Company and other restaurants and retail and other restaurants and retail in the vicinity, the Jan's Marketplace, the Oaks Mall, and many businesses along Lombard, Thousand Oaks Boulevard, and Moore Park Road. As you all know, the city, through the general plan update process, is looking for housing sites to meet the state's housing requirements, and this site helps chip away at the city's RHNA requirements. Project statistics indicate the project meets or exceeds several development standards. You've heard those, including the provision for more landscaping than required, more parking than required, and providing publicly accessible open space in the form of a parklet in the northeast corner of the property in excess of what the specific plan requires. The project is also designating 11% or 6 affordable to very low income qualifying residents and 2 units affordable to moderate income qualifying residents. The number of affordable units proposed exceeds what state density bonus law requires. And this project checks all the boxes. It provides housing in the west end of the boulevard where jobs are, where retail exists, and where services are provided. In addition, the project incorporates sustainability principles that will encourage walking instead of driving, thereby reducing vehicle miles traveled. Community engagement by providing housing near successful gathering places such as Tarantula Hill, the Tipsy Goat, and other gathering places that will encourage the community to support local businesses and providing our local businesses a place for their employees to live. And we continue to hear from the life sciences and biotech community expressing a desire for contemporary housing options for the next generation of workers. Staff did a great job walking you through how the project meets or exceeds the requirements of the city, and we've touched on the major points, but we'd be happy to delve deeper if you desire. I just wanted to mention that there's been some outreach done, and you'll see in the support that's here tonight from Thousand Oaks Boulevard Association and the Greater Conejo Valley Chamber of Commerce. And as staff has indicated, there's been no other communications from the public about this project. We have reviewed all 177 project conditions, and with the revisions that were discussed earlier, we find those conditions to be acceptable. In closing, with your blessing tonight to move this project to the City Council with a positive recommendation, my client is committed to working closely with staff and the community to bring a responsive, high-quality project that will significantly upgrade the area by removing an older commercial building and replacing it with a new residential community that will serve our residents and businesses well. I have the team behind me. Keith can answer any of your questions about design, and I know I heard some questions about that. And Richard's here to talk to you about trees, and of course I'm available to respond to any questions you may have. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight and present this, what I think is a very fine project.
Thank you. Okay, who's first? Commissioner Lanson.
Good evening, Mr. Cohen. Thanks for going through the process. I'm going to ask you the question I ask every developer. Don't mean to be offended by the process, but it's one of those things that I want to make sure we're clear on. Is this something where the applicant is just trying to get the entitlements to then flip it to somebody else, or do they actually intend to build it?
I have spoken to Mr. and Mrs. Lowe, and they actually intend to build this project as soon as they can.
That's great. And by the way, I mean, I don't mean that to sound as a mean question, but I really appreciate, by the way, how much it looks like the applicant and all of you did work with the staff in terms of trying to make this a good process.
Thank you.
Any idea, again, I know I'm asking for a range, so to speak, as to how long that process may take before we actually have the opening?
Well, the process to take the drawings from their conceptual stage to a building permit stage could take, upwards of a year. And there's a whole host of other things that have to go into that process. So, like I said, it's their plan to get this process started as soon as possible. Those plans go in. It'll take Keith and his team a while to get them to that state of constructability, but the ground could be broken within the next 18 to 24 months.
Okay. And just to confirm, you've not received any other communication from neighbors or anybody else with regard to the project?
No.
Okay. I did notice, and again, I think I saw your client's heads kind of saying no. There was a sign up that was for sale. I'm assuming it's not for sale anymore, and the broker just forgot to take the sign down, is what I'm assuming.
I'm not aware of the sign, but it's not for sale.
Okay, good.
Absolutely not.
We'll make sure we're understanding the process. I did have a question, as you noted, with regard to the noise. So I didn't know whether or not the units were built in such a way as to minimize the noise for the occupants. I don't know if that's
Let
a
me
key
ask
question.
Keith to come up and give you a little more technical response.
Hi, I'm Keith McCloskey with KTGY Architects and from Thousand Oaks, California. Regarding the acoustics to the project, when we get into the construction documentation process, we'll have to do an acoustical report, and we'll have to ensure a certain decibel level on the interior of the units. And so typically on freeway adjacent facades, that ends up being about a sound transmission coefficient of about 40, which often is triple pane glazing. So it will be either dual or triple pane glazing to make the noise levels essentially of a quality level on the interior of the space. That's the end goal.
The second kind of acoustic question, and I love the design concept, is the 3 work units look to be immediately below the pool. Is that correct?
They're essentially in front and to the west of the pool. So the pool sits on the opening of the courtyard, where the courtyard opens up to the small oak park with the playground on the north side. And those units sit just to the west of that. So they're immediately adjacent to where the pool equipment would be in that garage that's largely buried by the slope.
I'm saying there was something then kind of drown out the pool noise, so to speak, to the event is there residential right underneath, or what would be underneath the pool?
It's just equipment. Yeah.
Okay.
It's basically a vault that hangs down into the concrete structure.
Okay.
And then there's parking behind it.
Okay. And I don't know if this is your question, but in terms of the traffic issue, I know we were looking at the concept of usage. And again, right now, obviously, the property is, I don't even know if it's even occupied. When I went out there, obviously, it's hard to count trips. But I'm assuming if we went back years, the place was fully occupied. Is this traffic information indicated in the supplement what the applicant has found when the property was occupied? Again, I don't know if that's a you question.
Kind of the comparison to the traffic levels at maximum occupancy?
Correct.
Yeah, I think that the traffic engineer at Public Works could speak to that, but I think that the 8 additional trips at that peak time are really based on the expected occupancy at max occupancy, not based on, if it's currently, 20% leased, 25% leased. Yeah.
Okay. And the last question, Mr. Cohen, I appreciate you trying to answer it before I asked it, but just make sure, so you're agreeable with all the other terms and conditions except for the ones that you modified, and then you would be agreeable as to those as modified?
Yes.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Thank you. Any questions over here? No? Okay, I had a quick question. Will there be bike corrals?
Yeah, there will be bike parking for the bikes that would be secured in the parking structure.
Okay.
And we typically like to do them in that structure so that they're safe and protected for residents, normally in a key fobbed access room. Normally those are floor mounted racks. And we look to try and find ways to densify the amount of bike parking that could fit in there to exceed any city requirements. So as we do the construction documents, we'll work to find ways to find nooks and crannies to squeeze in additional bike parking due to the location of proximity to the boulevard.
I'm really glad to hear that. One last question. Could you explain how the rent pricing is for the very low income units? Is it based on a county formula? Is it based on the income of the applicant? How is that handled?
Yes, so the county has a chart that determines what the average median income is for residents, 1, 2, 3, family, 4, that kind of a thing. And so where the very low income category falls is 50% of that average median income. So as an example, let's say the,
That wasn't my question, I'm sorry, I
Oh.
wasn't very clear. So is it such that if you're renting your market rate apartments at maybe $3,000 a month, just throw out a number, do you take that percentage of what you're renting the market rate at to set the rent for the, or is there some other formula to set the rent for those other units?
They're essentially unrelated. So the market rent is just determined by market conditions. So often the very low or the low in the market may be closer than you'd imagine, depending on where the market lies. And if the market is very hot, that could be a big delta between market and very low. But the county will establish the maximum rent for that specific unit type. And
And is
so
that-
whatever
is that-
the published,
okay,
yeah, the published county maximum rent for that unit based on the qualifying person at that 50% AMI
Okay.
will pay the maximum rent per that chart, which, yeah, it does vary. It could be anywhere from 25 to 50% less than what somebody market would spend, but it could be even less than that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
We all talk about, the rent, but nobody really talks about how it actually happens, So it's nice to know. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Commissioner Lanson?
One follow-up on that. In terms of the affordable units, are they going to be dispersed in some formulistic way, or how is that going to be done?
Yeah, they're just dispersed equitably throughout the whole building. So they're dispersed on all three of the residential levels and at east, west, south locations throughout the project so that they're not shoved into one corner, that essentially the project will look and feel as one cohesive project and nobody would know which apartment is more or less than another.
And I'm appreciative you extended the deed restriction for the additional time on those units, so thank you.
Yes, thank you. Are there any other questions? All right, thank you very much. We have two public speakers. The first one is Sean Meridian. Please come to the podium and state your name and city of residence.
Thank you, Chair McMahon. My name is Sean Meridian. I am a lifelong resident of Thousand Oaks, and I'm here on behalf of the Thousand Oaks Boulevard Association in support of the applicant and staff recommendation. Just like to take a moment, first and welcome Commissioner Ferris to the Planning Commission and Commissioner McMahon. Appreciate your willingness to serve our community, and welcome Ms. McMahon back to the Planning Commission as well. I think staff did an excellent job, as well as the applicant team, to demonstrate the community benefits and the intent of this project and how severely underserved housing is. I remember not too long ago, there was such a passionate discussion about 30 units, 50 units, and now we have a project like this with pretty much unanimous support and just a willingness for people to want others that live along Thousand Oaks Boulevard and within close proximity to live in these units. I could tell you from firsthand experience, the last two projects that we've had on Thousand Oaks Boulevard, 1710 and 299, were almost 100% pre-lease, waiting lists, and the affordable units at 299, significant portion of those were leased by people that work along Thousand Oaks Boulevard, which I was really impressed by. We know what quality of project we're going to get out of KTGY. These guys have done a really phenomenal job, and this project resembles a lot of the nice architectural features of 299. All in all, we're in support, and we ask that you make a recommendation for support as well to the City Council, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. And next we have Danielle Borgia.
Good evening, Chair McMahon and Planning Commissioners. My name is Danielle Borgia. I'm President and CEO of the Greater Conejo Valley Chamber of Commerce. We represent over 750 businesses across the Conejo Valley, many in Thousand Oaks. And on behalf of our chamber and our executive committee, we just wanted to share our support for this project. I think one of the really important things that has been brought up tonight is the location. As we look to revitalize Thousand Oaks Boulevard, and with the opening of 299 and Tarantula Brewing and the Nazarbekian lot, also in that region. I think there is a lot of opportunity with this type of quality project to provide housing that's really close to our jobs, with walkability for people, and I think our young professionals are going to love this type of housing option. And we are in strong support of the project and hope you will support it moving forward to City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay. Now we go back to staff for follow-up comments.
I have none at this time.
Commissioners, are there any questions of staff? No? You are entitled to a rebuttal. Okay. Okay. At this point, we will close the public hearing. And I will now open up the floor for discussion and/or a motion. Commissioner Link?
I think I'm going to steal this one from Commissioner Lanson because I plan on reading the entire recommendation this time, so. Beautiful project. I do have some reservations about the continuity with the sidewalks, especially the amount of discussion that we had this evening about how walkable we want the boulevard to be. So if it were me and it was my world, and since it's not, you're off the hook, but if it were me and it was my world, I would have you do the sidewalk just to the north of your property, but I don't want to put anything else on your property that you haven't already been, let's say saddled, but that's the wrong word, that has a negative connotation with, because that's a lot of conditions. But anyway, again, I want to reiterate, very beautiful project. The architecture is lovely. It's, I think it will do well to invigorate the boulevard, because we do need, one of the things that is lacking is the amount of housing, or, well, I mean, yeah, there is no housing on the boulevard. And if we are to activate the boulevard as SP 20 has positioned, or at least what we have attempted to do, then this goes a great length. So, that being the case, I would like to make a motion that we recommend to the City Council that we determine the project is categorically exempt from CEQA, and that they approve a general plan amendment 2021-70182, development permit 2022-70269, protected tree permit 2022-70532, and development agreement 2022-70822 as amended.
How do you do, Mrs. Gore? How do you do on that?
Great.
All right, thank you. Do we have any comments? Commissioner Lanson?
Thank you, Chair. You notice the non-lawyer decided to read the whole thing as opposed to what I did last time. When I first got on the commission, we had, at that time already, I think, almost no properties left to build in terms of open projects. So what I looked at, this was basically strategic repurposing of properties wherever we could to find opportunities, to find engagement, to find connectivity. And I cannot think of a better project to do that than this. It takes a property that is not as effective. Oh, my time's up. Not as effective as it could be. It finds an opportunity to repurpose it in a way that actually brings its best use in terms of the process. It looks great. It provides functionality. Yes, there's going to be some issues. Again, I don't think there's any project that we've looked at that is going to be foolproof in that process. But again, the fact that we've tried to find issues, and the best I think we can do is looking at a sidewalk, and it may be a little noisy. It shows, I think, how ultimately really good this project is. My hope is that we see it soon. To be honest with you, that's one of my main goals at this point, is really to get this housing. Because again, as Borja said, we actually are looking forward to kind of doing these things. And I want to get that housing there for these people and to create that opportunity for biotech, which, by the way, is coming in town more and more and is looking for those opportunities. So thank you for doing a great project. Thank you for investing in the city. And I am in favor of the motion.
Commissioner Ferris?
Thank you. I just did have one question for Commissioner Lincoln making the motion. I mean, when you say as amended, I'm assuming that includes the recommended findings and conditions with the edits to the conditions?
Correct. That was the one part that I fudged.
That's fine. We'll have the lawyer down here tell you how to read it all. And actually, maybe we get some guidance from the commission secretary on how to read a very long motion and get it all right. But
Which attorney?
okay, yeah, either one. That said, thank you. I'm going to vote for the motion. I do agree with comments of the commission. I think it's a very, very nice project, well attuned with the intent of specific Plan 20. There and through the density bonus program that the state has allowed, we will be able to add affordable units for a variety of the socioeconomic members of our community to be able to live and work in the city. I'm glad that the applicant was willing to be able to do that, and I'm glad that we're able to support that community benefit with trying to also adhere to all the other high standards that we have for development projects within the plan and within the city. So thanks to everyone, especially staff, for providing a well-vetted, well-conditioned project, and for that I'll support the motion.
Thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner? No? Okay. I also want to congratulate, I feel like the applicant and the staff worked together to make a really wonderful project that is the highest and best use of that land, which is something that we all look for. So thank you to both of you. And I will also support the motion. Will the secretary please prepare us for a vote?
Commissioner Ferris?
Yes.
Commissioner Lanson?
Aye.
Commissioner Link?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyler Kettlehat?
Yes.
Tyler Kettlehat. Chair McMahon?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And there's no appeal process because this is a recommendation to City Council. And so thank you all for coming, and thank you for the process. Department reports, are there any?
There are no department reports this evening.
Item number 9, commission comments and AB 1234 reports. Are there any? Commissioner Ferris?
I think I did want to have some comments just for, not to actually discuss the topic, but maybe we can request some manner of a discussion session or something agendized for a future meeting. We have now in this case and in a previous case sort of expounded upon our discomfort of being requested to waive some of the standards that we have, given that some of the requirements of the density bonus program require concessions on some of those, and I'm not going to ask for us to discuss it, but sort of one of the things did come up in both those cases was the minimum private open space. One of the things I find interesting is that that was one for which a mandated concession was given, and so if we were to revise it downward, would then another codes that are worthy of us reviewing just for sign of the times. I think it's good, and it would be nice to have an opportunity to be able to speak freely and discuss that amongst ourselves.
Thank you. Do you have any other comments?
I did have just one more.
Of course.
I'm wondering if it's possible for any time where there are maybe for future staff reports for where there is a Measure E allocation, if there's a little bit more detail of the numbers of what's available, what's being allocated, so that we can judge for ourselves that it does in fact meet what's available. Prior to that, I had to do a little discussion myself with staff, which they were fantastic about, being very, very good on a Sunday and a Monday, on some back and forth. But it would help make it easier and just kind of more transparent to the public, and we could do that for future reports. That would be great.
All right. Are there any other comments from the commission? All right. Item number 10, Mr. Kearns, are there any follow-up items, announcements, or upcoming issues?
Yes, thank you, Chair McMahon. For the March 28th City Council meeting, that has been canceled. On April 4th, the City Council will have 2 public hearings. One to consider a municipal code amendment to repeal the requirements for the residential resale reports, and the other on the Chappelle Arroyo Apartments, which was endorsed by this group. Their second readings will occur on April 25th, along with a public hearing on the Community Development Block Grant Action Plan. For the upcoming Planning Commission schedule, on April 3rd, there'll be a public hearing for a special use permit for a Tesla dealership in the Rancho Canaria. There are no items scheduled for the April 24th meeting, but on May 8th, there will be a special use permit for a minor modification to allow medical and training school up on Willow Lane. And that is it.
Thank you. At this point, we will now adjourn to the next meeting, April 3rd, 2023 at 6 p.m. Good night, everyone.